Welcome to Lab 10B. This is the last lab this semester in our course, and it is the second lab in Chapter 10 that deals with management tasks that network administrator would have to be involved with on a regular basis, especially in a Cisco networking environment. So in this lab, we're going to go ahead and focus on the use of TFTP server, which is commonly used to backup and restore different files from networking devices. So configuration files like run-in and startup config should be protected and preserved, and it's best to save those files to an external server like a TFTP server. And the same thing with the iOS files. iOS files on networking devices, it's important to back up those files and restore them if we need to in case of emergencies. So the topology is simple. As you can see, we have three devices. PCA will be acting as our TFTP server, and router 1 and switch 1 would be the TFTP client in this simple topology. We have the addressing scheme reflected right here in the address table. And the first thing I'm going to do is test to make sure that all the devices can talk to each other. So let's go ahead and start by bringing PCA and check the IP address on PCA, and you can see right here it is in line with the topology. So PCA is 192.168.1.3, pointing to 192.168.1.1 as the default gateway, and that is router 1. So I'm going to go ahead and now check the other devices. So here's the switch. Already configured the switch with the addressing we need, and we're going to verify that by looking at the show interface VLAN 1. That's the interface that we're going to be using for the addressing on the switch. And we see it is currently up and up, and it has the 192.168.1.11 address configured. Finally, let's go ahead and check the router. On the router 1, we can verify the status of the only interface we're using, G01, and it's up and up, and the address is 192.168.1.1. So we verified all the addresses. Let's see if the devices can ping each other. So from the router, I'm going to go ahead and ping first the switch at 192.168.1.11, and the ping is successful. Next, I'm going to go ahead and ping the PC at 192.168.1.3, and that ping is also successful. So the devices can communicate with each other, and they do have the right addresses in place. Now, one final thing I want you to note about basic configuration is, remember, when you are configuring a switch, to make sure that only the ports that you need in a topology should be enabled. The rest should be disabled or shut down. So in this case, we only need port 5 and port 6 on the switch. Make sure to shut down all other ports. That's a good security practice, and it is important, especially if you're doing the lab in NetLab. So I've already done that, and you could verify that with the command show IP interface brief, and you will see that everything is administratively down except for those two ports that we need, 5 and 6, and that VLAN 1 interface with the address. Alright, so everything's checking out. Now let's turn our attention to the PC. The PC will be acting as our TFTP server. So if I go back to PCA, I can verify that PCA is acting as a TFTP server. For that, all you have to do is simply launch the TFTP application available on the desktop. If you don't have it on a PC, you can always download it from the internet and install it, but should be available in all the PCs in the classrooms as well as in the virtual machines in NetLab if you're doing the lab in NetLab like I'm doing right now. So I'm going to go ahead and start that TFTP application, and immediately it will launch the TFTP server, and now we are listening PCA to TFTP client. So you could see the address of that interface on the server is the loopback address. You can also change it if you like to the actual IP address, so you could see the address of PCA. Now we already verified that all the devices can ping each other. So our PCA is now a server, a TFTP server, ready to help the other clients in the network, which will be router 1 and switch 1. Alright, so this is going to be a fairly simple demonstration. I'm going to try to position the devices on the same screen. So here's PCA, and I'm going to go ahead and bring the router. So here's our router, and let me minimize the screen on the background so we'll have only the PC and the router. Alright, so hopefully you could see the information exchange between the two devices. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how we can back up configuration files from the router to the server. So I'm going to back up, let's say, the running config file from router 1. I'm going to copy that file to the TFTP server using the TFTP application. TFTP is the Trivial File Transfer Protocol, very commonly used for those type of tasks. Now, when I copy the running configuration files to the TFTP server, it's going to be placed in the current directory that you see right here listed in the server application. So it's going to go to the C drive, program files, and then into a directory called TFTP D32. Now I'm going to change that, so whatever I send to the TFTP, I would like to go to the desktop so you could see it on the desktop and we could examine it fairly quickly. So to change the current directory, all you have to do is go to the settings right here and change by browsing and point to the desktop as the directory, the base directory. So I'm going to change the base directory to point to the desktop. Again, I did that by going to alright, looks like it's giving me an issue with the DHCP server. So let's go ahead and try it one more time. Alright, field DHCP default right cannot be empty. It's looking for some information in the DHCP default, so let's go ahead and give it that. So I'll go to the DHCP and let's go ahead and give it something in here for that. Let's go ahead and alright, so again on the TFTP I'm changing the base directory to the desktop from the settings, and when I go to OK, it's giving me a problem with the DHCP server. It needs some information, but I don't want to use a DHCP service at this time, so here's what I'm going to do. The easiest way to get around this is to go to the global right here and simply tell it I don't want the DHCP server. So I'm going to uncheck the DHCP server, click OK, and now I'm in good shape. So it looks like now the base directory has been changed to point to the desktop, and the address is that of our PCA, which is now a TFTP server. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is go to the router, which is going to be the client, and attempt first to ping, which we know we already tested that, but just let's do it one more time. So the router can ping the TFTP server. The next step is to tell the router, which is client, to copy the running configuration file over to the TFTP server, which is PCA. And to do that, the command is simply copy the file that you want to copy, which is running config, space, and the destination you want to copy it to. And the destination is going to be simply TFTP. So copy running config TFTP. I'm going to press enter. And now we're going to follow the prompt. So the prompt right here is asking us for the address or the name of that TFTP server. So I'm going to provide the address of PCA right here, 192.168.1.3. And then it's going to ask us for the destination file name. What do we want to name that file? Let's go ahead and name it. See, the default it's providing us is R1 config. I'm going to go ahead and change it to R1 hyphen config like this. And now press enter, and you can see 2 exclamation points appeared right here, and it tells me that 1537 bytes were copied in 0.3 seconds to that TFTP server. If I go to the TFTP server and check the desktop right here, you could see the file has appeared on the desktop. If I want to see the file, I could open it. It is a text file after all, so I'm going to right click on it, open it, and I'm going to choose to open it with either WordPad or Notepad because it's a text file. So let's open it with WordPad. And here is our configuration file. It has all the configuration for router 1. Now, since it's a text file, one can change anything in it from WordPad or Notepad. So I'm going to make a simple change right here. I'm going to change the host name from R1 to router 1 and save the file. Again, I'm saving it to the desktop. So now I have an updated running configuration file saved on the desktop. If I want to restore it back to the router, all I need to do is just go to the router, and here you may want to start with a clean router that doesn't have any configuration onto it. So erase it, restart it, and then all you have to do is just copy the file from the TFTP back to the router. And the command to do that, once you are ready, is copy, and it's simply reversing. Take a look at the command on top. We did copy running config TFTP. Now we're going to do copy TFTP running config. We simply switched the parameters around where we are now copying from the TFTP server to the destination running config file. And we're going to follow the prompt. So press enter. Again, it's asking us for the address of that TFTP server, which is the address of PCA. Then it's asking us for what is the file we want to copy. So that is the file we saved on the desktop. All we have to do is just provide the name of it, R1-config. By the way, the file name is not case sensitive, but I'm going to use the same name that we used to save that file under. Now here you want to make sure when you do this that your TFTP server current directory or base directory is actually pointing to where that file is. I have it still on desktop, so I don't need to make any changes. So again, I'll press enter right here, and it asks me where do I want to put that file on the router, and it's giving me the suggestion, do you want to put it in the running config? And that's exactly what I wanted to go. I wanted to go to the running config, so I'm going to leave that the same and press enter. Now, when I press enter, if everything is okay, the file will be transferred from the TFTP server to the router. So if the router is clean, it will be basically configured with the new file. And if I have a router with some configuration on it, the new file configuration will be merged with the existing configuration. So it's going to be like an overlaying on top of it. And that's exactly what's going to happen in our case, since I did not erase the file. So what I want you to keep an eye on is, here's the name of the current configuration file for our router is router R1. Now when I complete the configuration, remember we changed the name of router to router1 instead of R1. So since we're copying back to the running config, that change should happen immediately, and we should see the name of our router change immediately from R1 to router 1. Let's test it and see. Press enter. It's accessing. The file has been copied, and notice the name of our router has changed to the new name router 1 instead of R1. So we have successfully copied and then restored, backed up and restored the file from the router to the TFTP server. So that's really the main thing you're going to do in this lab. Now there are different places where you could back up and restore files to and from. We just copied the running configuration file to the TFTP server and then restored it back. Now if I go to the router right here and type the command show file system, that's going to show me the file system on the router, and you can see there are a lot of different parts to that file system on the router. So I could copy and restore from any of these different parts of the system, but primarily the main place where you're going to copy and restore would be from the flash, which is reflected right here as flash 0 : or simply flash : So I'm going to demonstrate right here using the flash as a place to copy or restore from when we are dealing with TFTP server. Now in some cases you may also have a USB drive listed right here as part of your file system. I don't have it right now. This is why I cannot complete in this lab the USB part of that lab. Now when you're doing this lab, I want you to check to verify that you do or do not have a USB. If you do have a USB, then go ahead and complete the USB part of your lab. If a USB is not listed under the file system of the router, just go ahead and skip that part and don't worry about completing it. So for me right here, I cannot do the USB part of the lab since it's not available, but I could do the flash. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate working with the flash to copy files back and forth with the TFTP server. So first thing is to verify what is in the flash, and that is done with the command show flash, and you could either use flash : or flash 0 : either way would work. So if I type flash 0 : you could see the different files that we have available in the flash. So here are the different files that we have in the flash, starting with the very first file. That is a very important file. That is the operating system file. You have to be careful when working with the router or switches to not erase that file accidentally, because if you do, obviously the router becomes jeopardized. We cannot work with it. So avoid deleting or erasing this file or formatting the flash as part of the lab. And on the bottom right here, you see some of the configuration files that we have stored on the router. Now you can, if you want to, erase or delete files or directory from the flash. For example, here's a file called IPSDIR. Here's another file called IPADIR. So someone was working with this router, left these files accidentally, so I'm going to try to erase them. And to erase a file from the flash, your command is delete flash colon and the name of the file that you want to delete. So let me go ahead and start by deleting that IPADIR. You have to confirm, and if everything is okay, the file will be deleted. Now, if you cannot delete it for whatever reason, like this one right here, cannot perform requested operation on a directory, that happens to the directory, so it cannot delete the directory. There's a different way to delete the directory, and that is you would be able to remove a directory. If I remember the command clearly, I think it's rmdir, remove directory. Let me see if that works. And press question mark. Yeah, that will work. So let's go ahead and use that command to remove that directory. So rmdir, and we are removing the directory from the flash called IPADIR. Now you can proceed and remove it as long as it's empty. So let's see if this directory is empty. Alright, looks like it's not responding. Looks like we typed remove directory twice. So let me try it again. rmdir and then flash colon IPADIR. Again, that's the directory we want to remove. As long as it's empty, doesn't have any files in it, we should be able to remove it. And then it's asking us whether we want to remove, and the directory has been removed. If you want to delete a file, let's check the directory now one more time. Show flash, and that directory has disappeared. Let's say I want to remove this file right here called running or r1-run backup. To delete a file, you just simply type the command delete. You're deleting from the flash, and then the name of the file that you want to delete, backup. Alright, now even if you did not put flash colon, the default will be flash colon, so you could just simply type delete and the name of the file, and that would work as well. Alright, so that file should now be gone. If we go back to the flash, you notice that that file has disappeared. Alright, so we can work from the flash to the TFTP or from TFTP to the flash. We can do copy and restore from those two places, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate backing up the iOS file. This is a big file. You can see the size of it right here, so it is a big file. I'm going to try to copy it from the flash on router 1 to the TFTP server. And again, if everything goes correctly, this file should go to the desktop, because that's where the TFTP is currently pointing to in its current directory. Alright, to copy from the flash to the TFTP, the command is copy TFTP or copy flash TFTP. The source first and then the destination. So we're copying from the source, which is the flash, to the TFTP. And make sure to put colon after the word flash. So here's the command, copy flash colon space TFTP. We're copying from flash to TFTP. Now let's press enter. First thing we need to provide is the name of the file that we want to copy. And I said we want to copy this big iOS file. So all you have to do is just highlight it and then copy it, copy the name, and then paste it back. That would be the best way to make sure that you're not making a mistake copying this long name. Press enter, and now it says what is the address of the server you want to copy to, and that would be the address of PCA, and then it wants us to provide the destination file name. It's given us the same source file name we use. You could keep it, or if you want to change it, you could just simply change it to anything you want, like iOS. So this is going to copy this iOS file from the flash to the TFTP server and store it under the name iOS. If everything is okay, as soon as I press enter, it should start the process. We could see some activity on the router as well as on the TFTP server, where we see that a file is now being copied and started to appear on the desktop. So this is a long file, and then remember, we have a virtual machine, so we may have to wait a while for it to copy. If you want to interrupt the process, so you could just do so with the Control C a couple of times on the router, and that eventually will stop the copying process. If it doesn't, just give it a little bit of time. If not, you may have to wait for it to copy the whole thing. And we are simply copying to the desktop. It doesn't really matter. We're not going to use it. So once you're done, you can just simply erase it from the desktop. Do not restore it back, because I don't want you to take a chance of copying the iOS file back into the flash on the router, because I'm afraid we may corrupt that flash in the process. Alright, looks like the Control C, which typically interrupt the process, is not interrupting it. So you'll leave it running. You may also attempt to interrupt it from the TFTP server. If you like, you could just stop the server itself, but eventually it's going to complete the copying process and allow you to see the completed file right here. Remember, this iOS file is a binary file. It's not a text file, so you're not going to be able to open it using a text editor like Notepad or WordPad. Alright, so that's what you're really going to do in this lab, is primarily focusing on this TFTP application, turning your PC into a TFTP server and using the router and the switch as client. So we demonstrated right here using the router, but you can also use the switch for the same reasons. In the lab, you're going to be able to see working from the switch as well as from the router, and you may also be able to demonstrate using the USB as a source or destination to copy files, but we don't have a USB drive on this router, so I'm not going to be able to demonstrate that part. And if it's not available when you do the lab, you don't have to complete that part of the lab. Alright, looks like we completed. See, eventually the interrupt came through and the file copy has stopped. So if you look at the desktop, here is your iOS file that was copied, or whatever from the iOS file was copied. You can leave it on the desktop, or you could delete it, and to delete, just put it in the recycle bin. Do the same thing with the running config, and you clean that desktop on your VM machine. Alright, so that is all I'm going to show you for this lab. This is the last lab. As usual, as we've done before, just go through it. If you have questions, problems, make sure to contact me. This is also a good chance for you to start thinking about reviewing some of the key labs you did this semester and prepare for the final exam. If you have questions, issues, like I said, always feel free to contact me. Talk to you later. Best of luck.